Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Mendocha, Dr. Speed Selling. This is Raging Verbalist number 200. Who would have thunk it? 200 of these. Da, 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 da. That's sound effects. I mean, and by the way, I actually probably went online and paid money for that little harmony thing going on. Anyway, if you're new, welcome. If you've been with us for a while, glad to have you back. Raging Verbalist, we talk about topics that are of interest to me. You can check us out on YouTube and Facebook. The Facebook group is Position to Win Book, which of course happens to be my book, which you can also get at positiontowinbook.com. With me, as always, is the ever lovely Sandra. Welcome, Sandra.
Hello, happy episode 200.
200, we made it! Yay! Fanfare and all that. I would throw confetti, but we'd have to clean it up. So can't do that. So, all right. So what are we talking about today?
All right. So this 200th episode, we're talking about content. So can your business survive without content? So with that, why do you need to generate content on a regular basis?
The point of generating content, the necessity, and the need to do it goes back to Positioning the Battle for Your Mind by Jack Trout and Al Rees. They talked about the fact that this was an overcommunicated society back then. Imagine what's happened in those ensuing 42 years. And I can tell you that we are more communicating and putting out things. So if you don't put together content, if you don't actually get that done on a regular basis, out of sight, out of mind, and it's important because customers want to hear the story, and you'll get bored of the story long before the market does, if it's an interesting story. And it also means that we have to keep thinking of more ways to do it, more ingenious ways to do it, and to keep telling that all of that means that we have to have content. And we see that content is king. You see all of the various services that are out there. People almost don't do anything without being able to go watch a video or go listen to a podcast So content is a necessity. So now it is the reason why is that you just are going to be in trouble in the market if you don't have content.
And how did you get started generating content?
First business, I started, didn't buy into it. I started it, my mother bought into it with handing me $20 and saying, you got to pay me back, which I did. I actually had to start writing advertising and copywriting. And the first thing I did was I realized that my business partner was going to do zip nada bupkis, wasn't going to do a damn thing about that. And literally walked into the Denver Public Library and said, I don't really know what I'm doing, and I don't know what I'm looking for, but I'm kind of looking for this. And at the time, I don't know what it is like today, but at the time, librarians were pretty amazing. And they said, well, what you're probably looking for is how to, tell me what kind of business it is. Well, it's a mail order business. Well, okay, so you're probably going to need to do some mail order reading, so start reading some things about mail order. Interesting, lots of anecdotal stories. But what I really discovered is that it was advertising and copywriting. And since I was, putting my pennies and quarters and dollars together to buy ads, putting an ad in there meant that if the ad didn't pay off, I wasn't going to make it. So that's where I started to develop content in that regard. I was always interested in telling stories, but then I realized that advertising and storytelling were very much cousins, if nothing else.
And was it always easy for you to generate content?
It was a pain in the ass. It was very difficult because when I first started, first off, I had no frame of reference. No one I knew in my circle of friends, acquaintances, and whatever, where I went to school, nobody was sitting there going like, oh, going to write, try to sell. And, I don't know about that. Also, since I was selling on the phone and I had a script, so I looked at that and I realized that, it was something I had to do, because if you don't do it, it's kind of the survival mechanism. And so in the beginning, it was very difficult to generate content. I would come up with ideas. I had a lot of ideas that I would do, and I would tell people about these ideas. They go, that's fantastic. You ought to do something with it. And if I had a box for all of the things that I came up with that I didn't follow up with and didn't follow through and didn't actually do the work and the writing, it would be a pretty big box. I mean, we'd have to have one of those big 40 cubic yard dumpsters, because I had a lot of ideas, but they never went to fruition. So generating content was a very difficult thing for me in the beginning, primarily because I had a lot of rules that I had heard about, had some things in my head. All of them turned out to be not exactly true, not exactly right. So hopefully by the time we get through with talking today, you'll see that, yeah, there are rules, but just like in Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid movie, rules in a knife fight, there aren't any rules, just getting the work done. And that's what you have to do, is get your head wrapped around and get the work done.
And since it took you so long to write your first book, what advice can you give someone trying to attack a project like that?
I was selling high tech, and I was telling people how to sell, and first manager's job, and telling all of these stories that I would do and all the presentations that I made. And what I did was, people would say, "Wow, that's some great information. I haven't seen it anywhere else. You ought to write a book." And I had a lot of fits and starts, and that is, I would come up with a title, start writing something, run out of gas, run out of steam, start another one, run out of gas, run out of steam. Now, luckily, I was in a financial position where I would pay people to help me get a little bit further, but I kept doing that, pushing that along. And frankly, I never really got over that hurdle, that hump that I needed to do. Now, if you're going to write a book, and I would suggest, if you have something really that you want to say, go out and write a book. Make sure that you make a commitment to yourself that it's going to be a real book. So what do I mean by a real book? Well, there's a lot of self-published things. There's a lot of people who have a pamphlet. I call them a pamphlet. If you're Ernest Hemingway and you write, The Old Man and the Sea, and it was called the novella because it wasn't long enough. Well, I've seen stuff that's called, a non-book, and yeah, it's up on Amazon, and yeah, people are there, and but it's really just a glorified sales letter. So I actually came up with a formula, which is, I ended up meeting my co-conspirator, Gabe Batista. He got to meet me through me being a coach and he being the client. And so I basically say that the way to write a book is, it's 30 years in a Colombian and you get it done. It's a little tongue in cheek, but the point of it is that I didn't get it done because I didn't jump into it and push hard enough. More importantly, if you're going to do it, you have to make sure that you put in time every single day. And it's that grind and that discipline that's the hardest thing. And it will test you. It will test the best of you. And then you have to find a way to get the ideas out of your head and put them somewhere so you can then actually build the book. This is why there's lots of things that I'm working on simultaneously. Right now, I'm producing and putting out 3 different shows a week, and Raging Verbalist being one of them, only one that's free, by the way. And so therefore, you got to get in your head that you're going to do content, you're going to deliver it, and you got to work on it. And every single day, you got to work on it. Now, having said that, what I can do is I can help you get further along in whatever you're going to do and have a better shot, have a better potential. You may have the odds in your favor now, and that's what you want to do. You want to have the odds in your favor. So go pick up a copy of this. And this is a shameless plug. Most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize it, position to win. This book is the book I talked about. Really, I should have started writing this book, in early 80s when I got very fascinated about positioning. The book talks about positioning. So if you want the real inside of it, well, you got to go buy the book. You can get it from Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million, wherever physical copies are sold. You can go order it, or you can go and get it digitally on Kindle, Nook, and Apple iBooks, and go check it out. And what you'll discover is that you'll find out why most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. And it really is a very serious problem, because I hear people all the time tell me that they've got this great idea, and what they don't do is they don't do that first most important step, and they screw it up right away. Also, you can go check out Remote Work for a Better World, so you can actually do the whole remote work better than ever before. Most of the companies that are out there that are complaining about remote workers, well, they should have read the book. That's all I can say, because if they did, they would have been in much better shape. and they would have gone further. Also, check out the website, positionwinbook.com. You can get the physical book, which I will autograph and put in some inscription as long as, you know, I agree with it. And then pick up a mug, which is the Raging Verbalist mug, because everything tastes a little bit better. You get a little bit more of an edge, a bit better bite if you got the Raging Verbalist mug, because everything tastes just a little bit better than that. Sandra, what's next?
All right. What do you think is the largest stumbling block for someone generating content for themselves or their business?
The biggest one is abject fear. People will tell me that they have ideas, they have concepts, they have stories, they have things, but it's abject fear. And the fear is that they're going to get out there and they're going to get some feedback. And the feedback that you're going to get, and you just need to know that you're going to get this feedback, is that people are going to sit there and say negative things. I know, Sandra, when you decided in your life that you wanted to go out and explore the world, did you get negative feedback?
Why, yes. Plenty.
Everyone told you were crazy. Everyone told you can't do it. Everybody said that. If you want to get the Smile Club, if you want to get the Happy Club, if you want to go do that, in fact, probably we should, you know, that may be $1 million idea, so nobody steal it. But we probably should have, you know, where you can rent an audience of people who will tell you all kinds of great things about how good you are, because you're not going to get it from people. When I started developing content, writing things, putting things out there, I got a lot of pushback. I got a lot of negativity. I got a lot of, well, you know, who are you to tell us about this? And all I can tell you is that abject fear will paralyze you into getting it done. And it'll hit you like a ton of bricks, because you'll sit there and go, oh man, I'm not worthy. I'm not capable. I can't write this thing down. Write it down. Go out there and do that, and make sure that you put out the effort. And I don't care what version of whatever tool you're going to use. You know, I don't care if it's a 3x5 card. I don't care if it's, you know, you're going to use a word processor, a computer, a chalkboard. I don't care whatever it is, but you got to get it out of your head, and don't get it stuck in your head, because I think most people die with their best material in their head and not out there in the world, which I think we're all less enriched because of that.
And aren't there some specific things that happen that prevent us from generating content?
I hit that point in my life where I said, you know what, I'm going to go out and do this. I'm going to go out and become a professional speaker. I'm going to go take these steps forward. And I was in a position where I could go out and hire coaches and talk to people. One time I had 3 different coaches that I was working with. I was at the National Speakers Association. If it's your jam, it's your jam. It wasn't my jam, because all I can tell you is that their apprenticeship program did not work for me. It sucked, and it sucked because, as I said, NSA was, and that isn't the other NSA, but National Speakers Association was like a bad 12-step program without the cigarettes. It just, I had all this great advice, and it delayed me by at least 18 months, because what they did was they kept giving me their very rigid formula. Example, they said, John, if you go and speak to 80 people and convince them to buy millions of dollars worth of product, that's really a sales presentation. That's really not a speech. Well, if I took 3 weeks to plan that and carefully and meticulously laid out every single second and went out and did that, is that a speech or is that a sales pitch? Steve Jobs standing up in front of an audience and introducing the iPhone and changing the entire smartphone and cell phone industry, was that a speech or was that a sales pitch? That advice really hurt me a lot. So be careful who you get advice from. Be careful who you listen to, because lots of these well-intentioned people will tell you how it has to be done, and those rules are usually not true. They are bullshit, and I'm here to say that. They're bullshit. If somebody sits there and says, this is exactly what you have to do to, and I've read books, by the way. I mean, I was buying books, reading books, doing all this stuff. No, go out there and do it. But you have to find out who you are, and you have to overcome the fear. You're going to feel that fear, but you got to do it anyway. And when you stand in front of an audience, you just have to know when you sit there and you're getting content out there, because Just like right now, I don't know who the audience is. I don't know who's watching this out in the future. This is going out there. Who knows? There's some space aliens out there who are going, oh, I'll click the subscribe because we want to see this guy. By the way, do hit the thumbs up. And if you want to get annoyed, get the notifications. We're here every Friday. But make sure that you understand that for whatever you're going to do, you need to generate content, and you have to overcome those fears, because those fears are going to stop you. And sometimes people who are well-intentioned are going to stop you from doing that. Don't let that happen to you.
And can you give me a specific example?
I have a program that's called Speed Start Monday. Speed Start Monday is a sales meeting for those who either have a sales meeting that they hate. I attended many of those in my career. Usually you have a weekly roundup, where the sales manager or the the owner of the company or something gets up and offers some sage advice, and then somewhere in there you're going to hear him or her say, and this week we've got to go sell the shit out of this stuff. Go sell the shit out of this stuff. And of course, it's kind of a meeting that you got to go through. Everybody's making jokes and all this other stuff. Now, so people have those that they hate, or they don't have a sales meeting at all. And I started doing Speed Start Monday, and I do it every single Monday, 50 times a year. And the reason why I do it is that I think that there's a place where people can go out and learn about this thing called selling, persuasion, decision-making, and all of those things, because it comes down to that we have an unlimited, if you haven't written anything down, now's the time, big, giant, flashing sign, an unlimited opportunity to innovate in marketing and sales. Now you say, well, wait a second, how does this tie into, a specific example of somebody who gave you some serious negative feedback? I was in Taos, New Mexico. My wife used to go to Natalie Goldberg writing and seminars. Interesting, she loved it because she writes different than I do, but she's actually a great editor and edited the book. And, we're sitting there with her sister and her sister Barbie, and Barbie has her nose up in the air that she's a writer. She's going to be a writer. Never published, doesn't have an agent, doesn't have any of that shit, but she's a writer. Now, I didn't have a book either. But what I did do is at that point in time, I had achieved the same milestone I'm doing today, which is I had over 200 Speed Start Monday sessions. Now, I used to drive my wife to Taos, New Mexico from Southern California. She hates to fly, so we used to make it a whole big long trek. So while she was in the seminars, I was hanging out at the Holiday Inn and, built my studio right there. The people at the Holiday Inn got to know me. They were pretty funny, very accommodating, by the way. And I used to do that. So we're sitting there at breakfast, and Barbie looks at me and I say, well, I write too. And she goes, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I've done over 200 Speed Start Monday. Speed Start Monday, for those of you who don't know, is where I talk for 1 solid hour about a topic in sales, no pitching, no guests. I've had a few guests over the years, but no guests. It's me, a topic, and what I think you need to hear today. So she looks at me and she goes, but that's not really writing. Well, I know she's not going to watch this, so it doesn't matter. Guess what? Number 1,000, that's 20 years of these, number 1,000 is coming up in early 2024. So for anybody who thinks that that's not writing, writing is anytime you take an idea from your head and put it down somewhere, some way, somehow, and then express it to other people and get that message out. You're delivering the message. So if that's the case, then you're a writer. I don't care if you write just a couple of words or you write a million words. You are a writer. You are a person who can do that. And do not wait for somebody to come along and anoint you with a sword on each side of your head, shoulders on each side of your head and all that stuff. Bullshit. You're a writer, and that's a perfect example. In my mind, the fantasy would be to take 1,000 CDs. I know if you know what a CD is, everybody out there, but take 1,000 CDs, label each one of them for every Speed Start Monday episode, and ship it to her in a big giant ass box. I mean, first off, I got to find 1,000 CDs today, but that's a different issue.
And so what are some of the lessons that you've learned from?
So what I did was I started going out and trying to find out how other people write, because I had this very warped sense of this, and so I started following certain writers, and one of the people I really liked was Elmore Leonard. Elmore Leonard wrote like Get Shorty and other books like that. Sadly, he's gone. Went by his nickname was Dutch, and he was asked, well, what does it take to write a book? And Elmore Leonard said, well, it's really fairly simple. What you do is you get up and you write 3 pages a day. And you do that for 100 days in a row. And then you got 300 pages, and then you start editing. But you don't start editing until you got your 300 pages. You got to get your 300 pages. Wow, I was blown away by that, because I'd heard all these other people, going to outline, going to storyboard, you're going to do this, write 3 pages a day. So I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Now, the coolest thing, of course, is that Elmore Leonard, before he became a well-known author of Westerns originally and then crime drama, he actually was an advertising copywriter. And he told a story about how he was in New York City. He gets to the office. He's got his sweet roll and his cup of coffee. And his boss walks up and goes, hey, the Hammer Schlemmer people are coming in at 10 a.m. and we got to make a presentation. He goes, what? It's like 8:30 in the morning. He goes, yep. And I told him, you've got 3 great ideas. You might want to get to it. Well, he didn't have anything written. And he goes, I learned to write under pressure. Right away, I knew that I liked Elmore Leonard. So that was pretty cool. The second one is the fact that I went to a sitcom writing course, a comedy writing course by Stephen Kaplan. Very good, really enjoyed it. Now, it turns out I was the only one in the room that wasn't trying to get a gig writing for a sitcom. And Steve broke it down very simply. Lots of lessons. Maybe we do a whole thing about Steve Kaplan. Liked the guy, was a cool guy. Spent a little bit of time with him, 2-day seminar. And he said, if you can write a 2-minute bit that fits with the characters of The Simpsons and submit it, they might turn it into that 2-minute bit, because they write in 2-minute segments. So it takes 11 segments to get 22 minutes. And they had a huge storyboard, and they get these segments, and they lay them out, and they see how they can fit them and glue them together and all that. And at the time that I took the course, it was taking them 9 months to assemble 11 segments for each one of those, because they have to keep getting more and more and more material. Now, by the way, they've done how many episodes? A gazillion. And he goes, listen, if you can write a 2-minute bit that's really good, they'll give you screen credit. If you can write a 2-minute bit every single month, well, you're going to be hired on. You're not going to be just paid as a freelancer. And if you can do it really consistently, well, then you're going to be able to go get a job inside the writer's room. But it starts with, can you write a 2-minute bit? Fantastic advice, fantastic insight. And the final one, Stephen King, master of the blasting out millions of books. Somebody asked him, how the fuck do you write so many books? And Stephen King said, it's simple. I'm on the edge of my seat. King says, well, listen, when I'm going to write a book, what I do is I put everything aside. I do nothing else. My to-do list is very simple. Write 6 full pages a day. Do that for an extended period of time until I have enough page count that I can then go back to and edit and work on. Notice that he's got twice the output of Elmore Leonard. I don't know what drives that, but I went, wow, that's really great, which is why every single Monday when I do Speed Start Monday, I get up at 4 a.m. and that's Pacific time when I'm in my home office, and I write the script because I go live at 7 a.m. Now, this flies in the face of all these various things. I have had so many people say, John, you should write it the night before. You could write it the week before. You could do this, you could do that. I write it that morning. I deliver it that day. I don't have a lot of time to fix anything, so I have to write it the right way the first time, and it has to work. And then I have to have a clock in my head, and I have to have a countdown timer, because literally I start and I finish and I deliver an hour's worth of material. If you're going to go out there and build content, if you're going to go out and do those things, what you have to do is you have to have a mindset of that pressure, that sword of Damocles, that I got to get it done today. has got to be right there, because if it's not, then you're going to spend 30 years like I did, not getting this stuff done, not laying it out like you should, instead of what I've done for the last 20 years, which is to do 1,000, almost 1,000, little superstitious, I'll knock on wood here, but doing 1,000 Speed Start Mondays. If you want to check out any of that, you can always go to my website, positiontowinbook.com. You can find links there to all my other stuff. But what I will say to you is, get off your ass, go out there and record yourself, and go out and do that today. That's the only way to do it. And no matter how good or bad it is, move on. Keep pressing on. And then that's how you can say that you'll get to where we are today. So for myself, John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling, and the ever lovely Sandra, this has been the Raging Verbalist number 200. It's a great milestone. Keep coming back and seeing us every Friday, and go out there and create some amazing content. Thanks.